Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio and the Spirit Society of Virginia here with you. And the goal is to celebrate 14 years celebrating with the study, of course, with more inspiration. And the 14 years of the Spirit Society of Virginia, which is actually tomorrow, June 19th, exactly 14 years ago. And we are here standing, thank God, and sharing the good. That's the goal, to share the good always. But as we want to begin this moment that is very therapeutic for us, we want to invite our friend Camila to read a message for us. Right, Camila?
That's right, Vanessa. Good evening. Tonight, we are reading a message from the book Our Daily Bread by the Spirit Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier, Chapter 1. The church at Corinth was struggling with a number of pressing concerns when Paul wrote the above remark. What then shall we do, brothers? When you come together, each one of you has a psalm, a teaching, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. Everything is done for edification. The contents of his letter dealt with several spiritual problems facing the Peloponnesian brethren. However, we can isolate this particular verse and apply it to certain situations experienced by the new Christian groups formed within the environs of Spiritism's revival of the gospel. We very often see intense concern on the part of Spiritist workers for new examples of phenomenology and revelation. Some groups tend to stop their activities altogether when there are no experienced mediums available. Why? No medium can ultimately resolve the fundamental problem of his or her fellow spiritist illumination. Our spiritual task would be absurd if it were circumscribed to the mechanical attendance of large number of people at a center simply to emphasize the efforts of only a few. Disciples must understand that work and accomplishment belong to everyone and that each person must be busy with his or her own spirituality, constructive service. No one should complain about a lack of new information when voluminous concessions about a lack of new information from the higher realms are waiting the firm commitment of the willing student who seeks to understand life and to grow spiritually. When you gather together, remember the doctrine and the revelation, the power to speak and to interpret that you already possess, and get to work for the good and the light in the indispensable pursuit of self-improvement.
Thank you, Camila, for this wonderful and beautiful message. Now we are ready to pray together, hoping that this moment becomes deeply therapeutic for us. Once we understand more about so many things, we open possibilities. And today the theme is cultivating friendship. It's about the opportunity that we have to make a choice, to expand our circle of affection. As Emmanuel says to us, we'll study together. Let us pray. Hold on a second, friends. 1 minute. Let's breathe in and out. Dear God, we feel your call asking us to expand ourselves to new possibilities, to recognize in each and every person whom we meet in a daily basis our bonds, divine bonds that shall be deepened in true dedication and affection. We're not talking about mere words, external actions, but true feelings. And in the joy of feeling the presence of the Spirit mentors who kindly brought us all to this moment, encouraged us since day one to light up the lamp of wisdom that Spiritism brings to us. Wisdom that is founded in true love and knowledge. And we celebrate the joy of the good news that is constantly being reminded at the Spiritist Society of Virginia, in its headquarters of Cardiac Radio and the Spiritist Magazine, and its loving sister, the Spiritist Group in DC. The pandemic has made us all stronger, and for many of us, brought us even closer together. And we hope that tonight it really inspires us to be of greater help as we bring down walls of prejudice. We rid ourselves of the scales in our eyes so we can see clearly one another and the divine everywhere we are. In gratitude for so much, we ask for your blessings and your healing to the many people who ask for prayers, people who discarnated, people who remain, those who are having difficulties of any sort. We pray for those who have their names in the book of prayer, the Spirit of Southern Virginia, DC, Cardiac Radio. And we visualize a shower of light falling upon us, strengthening us, protecting us, and guiding us through this hour of friendship, of knowledge, and certainly love. May we stay under your guidance as we feel your protection, and you grant us the permission to begin our meeting tonight. And so be it. All right. Okay, friends, what are we going to talk about? Let us then go straight to the point Why have the spirit mentors of the Spiritual Society of Virginia chosen this topic? Why? Why have they chosen this topic? Cultivating friendships to as the theme for the 14th anniversary of the Spiritual Society of Virginia. Let us see the message that brings us the understanding of it all. It's a message that is here, and I'm gonna, okay, hold on a second, friends. Sorry. There is a message in the book Our Daily Bread, chapter 111. It says win friends, but if we go back to the original in Portuguese, it says granjeai amigos. The word granjeai means cultivate. It means dedicate ourselves to friendships. So that's why we're going to keep it more faithful to the original, because that's what it means. It's not a mere conquest. It's actually a harvest. And I'd like to ask Camila, because I'm going to pass the slides, Camila, and I would love to have you read the paragraphs. They are just a few, so we can go over this message together. Is that okay, Camila?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Would you like to start reading? And I'll pass the slides, okay?
Sure. Moreover, I tell you, use unjust wealth to win friends. Jesus. If people could study the remotest past of their human experience, they would quickly realize that all the knowledge and health related opportunities that make them happy come from the divine goodness, and that most of the material resources at the mercy of their whims proceed from injustice. It is not up to us to particularize, but to realize that concepts regarding human rights are the result of divine influence. However, that we are also compelled to realize how slow our personal evolution from downright selfishness to universal love, from iniquity, iniquity to true justice has been. In this regard, we must remember that nearly all the countries on earth arose centuries ago as the result of cruel conquests. With a few exceptions, humans have proved to be wasteful servants who, at the time of accountability, cannot show that they have been worthy of stewardship. That is why Jesus bequeathed the parable of the unfaithful servant to us, inviting us to true fraternity so that through it we may find the road to rehabilitation. The Master told us to win friends, that is, to expand the circle of affections in which we feel more and more intensively aided by the spirit of cooperation and intercessory resources. If our spiritual life has been somber and painful, let us seek to simplify it by acquiring true friendships, which will assist us on the difficult ascent to redemption. Even if today we do not have strong connections with the riches of injustice, we did yesterday. And it is crucial that we take advantage of this time for our own individual readjustment before divine justice.
Thank you, Camila. And now we go back together to the beginning. As our dear mentors who are always with all of us, they say, let us pay attention to how Emmanuel is going to address such a positive topic. Because people, what do they think about friendship? Oh, we like the same things. It's a very childish concept. Oh, we get along so well. But the concept of friendship in the good news that belongs to the Christ consciousness is beyond this very infantile way of feeling life. First, because of the roots of our past. It's so interesting that Emmanuel addresses a topic of positive approach like winning friends, cultivating friends, but he begins by reminding us of where we have been. Because usually we don't remember and we think, oh, I don't deserve, even children. I'm not good at making friends. I talk to several children and they say, I'm not good at making friends. I'm shy, I'm this. Well, but if we don't talk to them spirit to spirit, they won't understand that friendship is not a given. It's something you conquer, something you cultivate. And it takes time, it takes patience. Leon Denis, in the book After Death, when he talks about patience, he's saying, patience gives room to benevolence. So we won't be able to do the good if we aren't patient. And we're not talking about being patient in the sense of, we're talking about the deepest feeling of patience, which is not spoken, which sometimes is not even expressed to people. It's when we know inside of us that we're not the center of the universe. He reminds us that in the past, our resources were used in a very selfish way to feed our ego in very unjust ways. He reminds us here the whims, the material resources at the mercy of our whims, often the resources we've acquired come from injustices. But it happens today. It's when we are at work and we know somebody's going to be promoted, but we want the promotion, and we find a way to make sure that this promotion comes to us. Not because we wish them ill, but because we want an extra here and extra there. This is injustice. But Vanessa, isn't that progress? Not at the expense of people. When we progress and it happens at the expense of somebody's very tough labor, we are not working in the lines of justice. Nowadays in the United States, we have a modern slavery, which is all the people who work and only have the minimum. They don't have benefits. It's the minimum of the minimum. It's a modern way of being enslaved. When President Biden recently talked about raising, and he signed the bill for federal employees, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, President Biden clearly opened a celebration for some, and for others it was a curse. Because you talk to employers and they say, you're going to break me. I'm not going to be able to do this. But when you think of slavery, real slavery, because tomorrow, June 19th, is the celebration of the center, but it's also a new holiday in the United States, Juneteenth. It's all about when we break our bonds with slavery. And when we recall slavery, that's why many people felt that it was okay. Well, who is going to work in my farm if I don't have slaves? Who is going to do the work for me if I don't have slaves? I'm not going to pay them. If I pay them, I'm not going to live the same way. Same way people do nowadays. They have billions of dollars and they exploit unjustly many lives. Can we be happy that way? He talks about the concepts of human rights. He says that we're still slowly ridding ourselves of this selfishness and little by little stepping into the realm of universal love that people are unfamiliar with. And from iniquity to true justice. That's the pathway. Are we just? When we go to the spiritual book by Kardec, in the law of justice, love, and charity, we're going to see Kardec mentioning to us that to be just is to respect people's rights. We're still far from it. And then later, Emmanuel is going to remind us that this has been the history of our lives for millennia. In the book, On the Way to the Light, Emmanuel through Chico Xavier talks about the evolution of our planet, the history of humankind on Earth since its formation in the eyes of Spiritism. So it confirms all the facts that we know, but it talks about the behind the scenes. And we are going to see that we were the ones who were there playing those roles of cruel conquests. When we, as he says, humans have been proved to be wasteful servants. And when we are held accountable, we cannot show that we are worthy of what we've been granted temporarily. Are we good stewards? And that's why now he's going to mention the parable of the unfaithful servant when Jesus teaches us how to go from these unjust ways to the just, the universal love, the true fraternity, true solidarity. And that's why I would like to ask Paloma to kindly explain to us the parable, right, Paloma?
That's right, Vanessa. It is so interesting how Emmanuel brings to us a concept of cultivating friendships, but he starts the text by talking about this wealth that is being misused. And then he talks about that, recalls a parable that Jesus was talking about, which is the parable of the unfaithful servant. In this parable, friends, we're just going to recall very quickly what happened. There was this rich man, and he had someone that was managing his resources. What the parable does say servants, but you can think of an administrator, a manager, if we want to use a term that is more current. And this rich man heard that the servant was not administrating the resources very well. So he came and asked him, what is going on? The servant, so interested, he didn't say anything. And so the rich man said, okay, you can no longer be my manager. The servant went out and was talking to everybody that had to pay the rich man. They were in debt with the rich man. And he was going back to the ledger and changing the amount of the debt. So he would go and ask, how much do you owe the rich man, my master? Oh, 100 measures of olive oil. Okay, I'm going to mark 50. He went to another person and saying, how much do you owe my master? Okay, I'm going to give you a 20% discount. You're only gonna owe 80. But it's interesting because Jesus mentions that the reason he was doing this was because he was already thinking that once he lost his job, he didn't want to beg for favors. He didn't want people to not care for him. He wanted people to invite him to their house. Imagine, this is back at a time in small cities where everybody knew everybody. So being invited or not invited to someone's house was important. So he was calculating. So friends, we need to stop here and think, what does the rich man means to us? We need to put ourselves in the context of this story. God is the owner of everything. God has the resources, like the rich man. God gives it to us. We are the servants. When God gives to us this wealth, these riches, we need to administer to the best of our capability. But what do we do? What is the reality? And as much as it's hard for us to hear these things sometimes, it is still the reality of all of us. What do? We misuse the resources. Yes, we do. We have food, we waste food. We throw it in the trash. That is misuse of resources. We have water, we waste it. We have money, we just do whatever we want. We have love. Oh, yes, we do. We don't only have things that are material because God gives us everything, including love. And what do? We withhold it. And when Emmanuel brings this parable to us, reminding Jesus and being unfaithful, he's saying, how do we win friends? Why is this important when we're talking about friends? Let us see what else he says. Emmanuel says, that is why Jesus bequeathed the parable of the unfaithful servant to us, inviting us to true fraternity, so that through it we may find the road to rehabilitation. We misuse these resources. We make connections that are not true. They are not real deep connections. So what do we have to do? We need to change. Why do we need to change? Because we need to rehabilitate ourselves. Because we might be thinking right now, oh, well, Paloma, I'm really trying to apply myself. I am trying to do better, not waste any other resources. Yes, friends, that is fantastic. But we have wasted for a long time. And that's why we need to rehabilitate ourselves. So one last thought for us. It's a question. What do we really, truly possess in life? In the Gospel according to Spiritism on chapter 16, which says, you cannot serve both God and Mammon, the good spirits tell us, humans truly possess only what they can take with them from this world. Only. Absolute, that the answer is so straight. Only what we can take with us. And they say what those things are: intelligence, knowledge, moral qualities. But friends, we're going to put now all of this together: intelligence, knowledge, moral, applying yourselves, using the divine resources better. And there's one more thing we can take with us: true friendships. True friendships that go beyond the material connections. How can we measure a true friendship? Is when we know that it doesn't matter what happens, we can count on that person. One true friendship, Jesus. We know that. Guardian angels, our mentors. We might not perceive them, but they are here for us. And we have people around us that are also in these deep connections. We just need to let it happen. True friendships. We need to keep cultivating them. Thank you.
And dear friends, as we talk about this friendship, let me look here. We have Jesus, as Paloma just finished, in telling us how we can cultivate. And as we study this chapter, very important chapter to us, because we are always living with people. We are always connected and then making friends, meeting people in our lives. And it's interesting that in the beginning of this chapter, Jesus starts saying about the how we are happy, right? What makes us happy comes from the divine goodness. So all that is divine make us happy. But he also mentioned about the material resource that we acquire in which was unjust. And those are things that we don't think about it. But as Paloma just explained to us, God is this rich man that provides everything to us. And if we are wasting, if we are not doing this good with everything that he provides to us, we are being this unjust servant, unfaithful servant. We are not doing what we were asked to. And love is the only thing that we should focus in acquire in our life. And when we acquire love, we are able to cultivate these friendships wherever we may go, because we will see this divine and this love that we have in us, that God has provided to us. But we also gonna see this love in the friend, in the brother, in anyone that we come across, because we know we are all part of one. Everything that God has provided to us were provided for us not to be wasteful, right? Is for us to use. So if we continue cultivating this friendship, God already has put the seeds in our heart, the seeds of love, the seeds of friendship. So when someone comes to our life, we already have the first contact to make this friendship to grow. But God and Jesus knows exactly how to do. That's why he comes and teaches many parables. Like Paloma mentioned this parable. We have the parable of the person that go and seed and plant love. And let us think about that, because when we plant something, when we want something to grow, as our intellect, our friendship, whatever we might focus in life, but we know the goal is to focus on love, because God tells us that. So we are going to cultivate the friendship, cultivate whatever we have received from God with love, caring, showing to the person, showing to the animal, showing to the plant how much we love and how much we do this exercise of being selfless and sharing this divinity that we have in us. So when we apply this love and caring and really take the time and take the the best that we can to nourish and cultivate the friendship, to cultivate a relationship, the relationship between us and God, between us and Jesus, we will see that we are going to progress. We're keeping progress because we are putting in practice this true fraternity that we have to cultivate daily, being charitable, being good to people at work, being good to people that we meet on the streets. We need to be charitable and work in cultivating this. And once we do all of these two steps, right? We meet the person, we cultivate the relationship, we will see what is gonna bloom, what is gonna bring to us. And these friendships that we have the relationship with Jesus. Jesus comes and show us that he is this true friend, right? He's the true friend that comes and follow along with us. And he said in this chapter, closer to the end, he said, the master told us to win friends, that is, to extend the circle of affection in which we feel more and more intense aid by the spirit of cooperation and intercessory resource. So Jesus help us and comes and bring to us this example of friendship. How are we cultivating? Remember, throughout the good news, throughout the books that we read about the relationship between Jesus and the disciple, he was always loving and caring. He was always there, kindly teaching them the lessons, right? Sometimes the friend is not going to be the one that only going to say what we want to hear. A good friend will tell us the truth and pointing us to the right directions. And then we make these choices if we are going to follow the guidance of the friend. But having Master Jesus as a good friend and following the gospel that he gives to us, we know that we need to align ourselves with this divinity, with this divine law of love and progress. So it's simply in acquiring a lot of friends, just following Jesus' steps. And Jesus and God gave us family. And family was one of the first steps for us to learn how to cultivate the relationships of friends, of loved ones, because we reincarnated with family members that sometimes we need to really work on cultivating this love, cultivating this fraternal sentiment between you and the other person. So, family is how we can start to address, start to shape it up relationships of friends. Because as we do good, as we love one another in our house, more easily and more open we will be to people outside of our home and will create much more friends. And we expand. As we expand to the friends, we have the community. We have people that comes to the center that we start to become friends. We have people that we meet on the streets that for some reason we becomes friends. And we start nourishing the same steps. We meet is the seed that it was showing to us. And then we cultivate this relationship, but the true relationship of love, of caring, of being there to the person whenever they may need. So we start cultivating. And once every steps go through, the fine relationship between us and Jesus, between us and the family members, between us and the greater community, we feel that this flow of love go through us, and we feel that we are aligned with the love of love, the law of love, and we can be more charitable, more happy, and really touch and feel this kingdom of God that He's always mentioning, because we already feel that we are there because we are doing the good. We are progressing in doing the good to everyone surround us. And Jesus, in His finished saying, we need to readjust ourselves with the divine justice, which is to love. So we need to exercise this love, as Paloma mentioned in the beginning. We already have the love in us. We just need to not hold anymore. We just need to let it go and share. And as we share this love, the more and more we will feel fulfilled and happy. And this flow is so immense and so good that we'll be all friends, all the same family, will be so joyful, because this is the goal. The goal is for all of us be together as brothers and sisters, as Master Jesus tell us. So we need to cultivate this love in us and help to create more friends. So let us continue in studying deeper this beautiful message that Jesus comes and share with us. We have our friend Daisy to continue.
Thank you, Luciana. So, friends, let us continue, as our dear Luciana just said, is studying this message that has so much to share with us. It seems like a short message, but it's so deep, and there's so much for us to reflect. And so let us go back and review the last paragraph of this message together, as we've been studying with Vanessa, Paloma, Luciana, how we bring our past with us. We know we're immortal beings. We look at the history of our planet. We see that we were ourselves there. So what is the role of friendships in our lives? That is the question. So let's see what Emmanuel tells us. In the last paragraph, he says, if our spiritual past is somber and painful, so we all know that our list of things that we came here to address is very, very long. We study ourselves, we look at our attendance. We do know that, yes, our past is not pretty, but that's not for us to feel guilty. So, what is the next step? What should we do to really, as Emmanuel says in the book Thought and Life, get rid of the shackles of the past, how we truly liberate ourselves? He says, let us try to simplify it by acquiring true dedications that will assist us through the harsh climb of redemption. Here, true dedication, he's talking about acquiring the true friendship that we have been hearing from Paloma and Luciana. This true friendship is the way that will help us climb this ladder of redemption. So we cannot do it alone. We need these true friendships. And he says, if we do not today have a determined bond with the wealth of injustice, we had it yesterday. So if today we think, oh, but today I'm doing great, I already know better, but we know we're not perfect yet. So there's much to learn. And we bring, as we have been discussing, this past with us. So what can we do now in this reincarnation? Emmanuel continues, says, it becomes indispensable that we take advantage of the time for our own individual readjustment before the divine justice. So it's right now, friends. It's not tomorrow. It's not a year from now or the next reincarnation. the time that we have right now is precious. So there's not by chance that we are reincarnated in the circle of friends that we have, in the blood ties that we have, in the colleagues at work, the friends that we have throughout our lives in different stages in our lives. Nothing is by chance. And why is that? So let us go to the Spirit's book, because in the Spirit's book, we're gonna understand more about the law of society. If you're not familiar with the third part of the Spirit's book, we recommend that we all study, because in the third part, we get to know about the divine laws. And one of the divine laws is the law of society. And Kardec asked, what is this law of society? Are we social beings, or are we here to live in isolation? So through Kardec, the High Spirits clarifies to us that humans must progress. So we know we all destined to progress. Yes, but how are we gonna get there? The Spirit says they, all of us humans, they cannot do so alone. However, since they do not all possess every faculty, they need contact with others. In isolation, they become brutish and withered. Okay, so here is the answer, friends. In the Spirit's book, we need contact with others. We're not going to be able to redeem ourselves, as Emmanuel said on the message, to get rid of the shackles of our wrongdoings if we think we can do it by ourselves and alone. That's why we live in our society. So we need one another. And Kardec continues and clarifies, no single individual possesses the complete range of faculties. So we don't have everything within ourselves to do it. That's why we need others. So it is through the societal union that individuals, they complete one another in order to ensure their own welfare and progress. So friends, let us look at this picture. Has all of these different pins are connected with one another, forming this heart. So that is us. We need one another to be able to progress, because if there is something missing here, the heart's not there anymore. It will be something else. So it is incomplete. So we need the societal union to progress. It is because that they need one another that they have been created to live in a society and not in isolation. In this topic of isolation, it's so important, friends, that we really want to emphasize. The mentors asked us to talk about isolation, because we live in our society nowadays that isolation is so prevalent. We're not talking here about the isolation because of the pandemic, right? That we have been going through in more than a year now, which is not even isolation, right? It's taking care of ourselves and socially distance. But here is this isolation. It can be physical isolation. So those who they like being by themselves, they're like, oh, don't bother me. I like stay at home or do things by myself. So it can be the physical isolation. Nowadays, with social media, with access to the internet, so that people can be at home and they can have other family members at home, But they do what? They isolate themselves. They are in the computer, they are on the TV, they're on their phones, but they don't live in this sharing of one another. So is this when we share our sentiments? That is what the spirits through Kardec are bringing to us, the importance of truly living in society. But then we might say, but Daisy, it's so hard. People don't understand me. Or it's hard to go out there and have this connection with people, even inside our own families, because we get into arguments, or we don't understand one another, we don't get along, right? How many times do we hear that? So what is the answer? And exactly this question was asked to Jesus himself. So how can we live in a society if, as Simon Peter asked Jesus, how can we proceed when the friends do not understand us and when they repay us with ingratitude? And this dialogue, it is in the book Good News by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier on chapter 12, titled Love and Renunciation. And you can read this complete chapter in English in the Spiritist magazine. And we recommend you to read the whole chapter. We're going to bring some highlights here because Peter asked exactly that. We know we need to progress, we need to live in society, we need to have these relationships. But how can we move forward if the friends around us, they do not understand? They face us and repay us with ingratitude. So Master Jesus has our guide and model. He brings us the answer. He starts talking about this true and sincere love. He says that true and sincere love, so this true friendship, we don't expect any rewards, nothing in return. So as we start this talk, it's not that we are looking for that connection with colleagues at work or people in our family or in our communities, neighborhoods, spiritual centers, because we have a hidden agenda. Jesus says that true love, there's no reward, but renunciation is the foundation. That is the key. Renunciation, as the act of giving is the essence of his life. So when we renounce, when we give without expecting anything in return, the ability to feel this great affection is already a treasure in itself. And Jesus says, the understanding of a friend should be the greatest reward. So 2 key words here for us. As we talk about this true friendships, how do we cultivate it? We will have to renounce. We will have to give of ourselves. And we'll have to understand others, because if not, we'll fall in the opposite, in the isolation, as we just talked about. So in order for us to live in a society, we're going to have to renounce. People will come with different points of view. It doesn't mean that we will agree with everyone, but we will understand, we will respect. That is the essence of the true friendship, as Jesus is teaching us. But what happened? What happened then if people, they don't feel that they understood? He finishes and says, however, when the light of understanding is postponed in the spirit of those who we love, we must remember that we have the sacred understanding of God that know our purest resolutions. So that means that we're not going to enter in a friendship expecting we will understand others, but we're not going to expect to be understood. Jesus himself wasn't understood. So we're understood by God, God understands us. So that changed the lens of this true friendship. And we finalize with our Master Jesus because he came and he showed to us this true friendship. He talked to everyone, regardless of their social status, their conditions, if they were sick, if they were poor, if they were rich. So he understood everyone. He knew where they were coming from. He understood them. And then at this very chapter, he tells the disciples, which are all of us, that he has given the disciples the title of friends because it is the greatest title. So friendship is the greatest title beyond those who come through our family ties. So we now look at Jesus as our true friend who came to show us the pathway, reminding all of us that we will not be able to cultivate and get rid of this isolation and live in true society if we don't renounce and we don't understand. So with that, friends, we'll pass the word to our dear Carol so we can continue studying this message tonight.
Thank you, dear Daisy. So, as Daisy was reminding us so beautifully, the most beautiful title we have received from our Master is the title of friends. And since our Lord Jesus is indeed our Master and model, we know that we are incarnated to follow him. If we wish to follow him, we are being invited tonight, yet again, to cultivate friendships for immortality. Now, the question we shall reflect upon is how may we cultivate friendships for immortality? As our Master has exemplified to us, it all depends, beloved friends, on the criteria through which we cultivate friendship. If we cultivate friendship based on our friends' color of hair, eye color, brands of clothing, or job status, or nationality, or linguistic and cultural backgrounds, for instance, we are not ready yet to cultivate friendships for immortality. How do we know, friends? Because these are criteria based on materialistic principles. How do we arrive at this conclusion? Because our color, hair, eye color, nationality, linguistic, cultural backgrounds, clothing brands, car, housing, etc., are perishable, meaning we are not going to carry all of these possessions with us for eternity. So, how shall we cultivate friends beyond this limited time in which we are enrolled in the school of life? If we follow again our Master, we know that our criteria shall shift to a virtue-based approach to relationships. We are going to seek then for friends, for relationships where we are able to serve, where we are able to give of ourselves, where we are able to cultivate patience, kindness, compassion, and love beyond this passing, fleeting criteria of materialistic perspectives. So, with that in mind, we shall continue studying Emmanuel's words further, thinking of course, our Master first and foremost. As Emmanuel reminds us The Master has told us to cultivate friends, that is, expand the circle of affection in which we feel more and more intensively aided by the spirit of cooperation and intercessory resources. We would like to bring Chico Xavier as an example for us of someone who incarnated amongst us was able to cultivate friendships for immortality. How so? Because he didn't calculate who he would have a relationship with. He didn't think, oh goodness, I'm going to be friends with so and so because they have a nice car and they can take me where I need to go. I'm going to be friends with so and so because they may offer me a promotion. No, Chico Xavier, as we can see in this picture, beloved friends, embraced literally everyone. He used to kiss the hands of everyone who came to his encounters, hundreds and hundreds of people a day. And in one of these encounters, Chico Xavier met a mother who was experiencing great affliction because of her daughter's painful experiences. And Chico Xavier, consulting Emmanuel, recommended to this mother that she did charity. At first, she was puzzled, but when she returned to her hometown, she decided to join efforts with another friend who was visiting people who were imprisoned. And so, as she visited the people in the prisons and baked cakes for them, offered to talk to them, her husband even helped them get a stylish haircut, and she truly gave of herself without calculating benefits for herself. Chico Xavier tells us through Emmanuel that the discarnate mothers of the individuals who were in that particular prison started interceding on behalf of the woman's daughter. And little by little, the woman's daughter's obsessors were convinced that they too were children of God, and they freed the daughter of their influence as they also felt embraced by this current of light and love, because love has no limit. So when the mother came back to Chico Xavier asking why this had happened, Chico Xavier told her, charity is the key. Being able to serve of ourselves and expand our circles of friendship in the good will free us from the shackles that we have created. Emmanuel, in another message, reminds us that if divine justice finds us doing the good on behalf of others without calculating benefits for ourselves, without self-interest, then divine justice shall lift the pain of our debts before the Father on high. So as we help one another, we are helped as well. But we are being invited tonight by the mentors and by Emmanuel to truly give of ourselves. This is how we cultivate friendships for immortality. And going further, Emmanuel also invites us to practice being truly dedicated to one another. As our dear Daisy has already told us, if our spiritual life has been somber and painful, let us seek to acquire true dedication, which will assist us on the difficult ascent to redemption. we would like to, of course, bring our master as a model. He was the number one servant of everyone. He humbled himself so much that he washed the disciples' feet, telling them and all of us that in order to be true friends, we shall sacrifice our ego in the benefit of the general good. And in the book The Messengers by André Luiz through Chico Xavier, we see an account of how important sacrificing our interests is for our own evolution. In this book, in chapter 7, we see the case of Otávio. Otávio had been prepared for 30 years in the spiritual realm to reincarnate amongst a Spiritist family, and in his reincarnatory plan, it had been agreed upon that he would embrace 6 children as part of his family later on in his life. And those 6 children would sustain him morally so that he could fulfill his tasks before God in that particular reincarnation. But he would have to give up his materialistic interests to be able to embrace these children, adopt them as part of his family of the heart. Upon reincarnating, however, Otávio could not fulfill his promise to God and to his own conscience because he preferred the more materialistic route. He preferred getting married and deviating from those divine objectives because he was not ready to truly dedicate himself to the general good. So, dear friends, we, as in the case of Otávio, are the ones who ask before reincarnating for God to give us opportunities to help one another. We ask God to train us in practicing true dedication. We ask God to bring people to our lives that can teach us to cultivate patience and understanding. But the question for us is, are we awake enough to see the gifts that God grants us? Otávio wasn't truly awake yet. The question is, are we? That's an opportunity tonight for us to meditate upon this. And because we are on earth to awaken ourselves to acquiring God-centered virtues, Emmanuel advises us in this beautiful message to take advantage of this time when we are reincarnated in the school of life. He reminds us that we should take advantage of today for our own individual readjustment before divine justice. And we know that the door for our readjustment is charity, is giving of ourselves. And in the book Jesus in the Home, chapter 22, Jesus, our Master, tells us that time is the divine talisman that can heal relationships. So if we have someone close to us that we perceive as a challenge to us, tonight we have an opportunity to revisit the lens through which we see those relationships. We are being invited to edit the movie that we are creating of our lives and to perceive those who require patience from us as a blessing because they are helping us cultivate virtues we were incarnated to acquire. To bless those who challenge us, for they teach us to love more. And so today is the time for us to shift our perspective and come to understand how this reincarnation is blessed, and how every day God and Master Jesus and the mentors who love us are asking us to take advantage of this time to cultivate friends for immortality. Thank you, dear friends. And now we would like to pass the word to our dear Vanessa.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, friends. And now we are going to wrap up by recalling that Emmanuel brought to us in this message the awareness of who we have been, whom we have been in the past, the choices we made, and today. We are given the opportunity of new choices. We can choose, and that's a beautiful and important concept to teach our children daily. You can choose. Oh, I'm not happy. Okay, so choose another emotion. Build happiness. We need to leave this inertia in life. When we are born, dreaming of things that we haven't conquered, we haven't cultivated. And friendship is a cultivation that we've learned with all the friends who came here to share their studies from the wise spirits, that at the end of the day, it's all about true friendships in the good to fulfill God's will. Daisy has mentioned a passage. We're going to go a little deeper just for the sake of the wrap up. It's amazing that in the good news of Jesus, the gospel of Jesus, because that's what gospel means, good news. And in this book titled Good News, we were just curiously going through the book, and we counted how many times words that contain this word friend are in this book, Good News. 68 times. It looks like it's an important word. It's important. Are we good friends? What is to be a good friend? How to be a good friend? As we've learned here already, Humberto de Campos, in this book, is going to tell you and I that we have a divine friend, and he comes because he cares. And he doesn't stay in a castle, separated, living his life, healing people, and then going to his castle. No, he lives with people. But Vanessa, I'm not Jesus. Well, we better change that way, because he came here to show us the way to be a Christ spirit too. So we have to. Oh, but I don't want to do it. Okay, so if we want to be lazy in the learning experience, we can. And that's a concept that Spiritism tries to rid of our minds. Laziness, postponing for tomorrow decisions that we must take today. When Jesus comes to the young rich man and says, come with me today, but leave everything behind you. He said, let me run the last race. He died. There was no time. So this thing of like one last race, remember, our previous lives were the last races. And here we are. After the fact, saying, it didn't work. So in this life, there's no more room to postpone this. And today we are given a beautiful lesson. It's a social, emotional, spiritual lesson in Spiritism to all of us, teaching about how to make friends for immortality. So there is a moment, and these are excerpts of the book Good News, Boa Nova, chapter 12, which is titled Love and Renunciation. And at some point, there is a description of a beautiful conversation between Jesus and Peter. But this is the context, how it goes. They were talking about the things that Jesus was doing. So kindly, queried by the master, the apostle clarified his question. In the light of your teachings, Lord, how should we interpret your first manifestation, turning water into wine at the wedding at Cana? Was it not a worldly party? Wouldn't have wine have led to the promotion of drunkenness and gluttony? Jesus understood the scope of his inquiry. He smiled and said, let's not forget that Jesus is not smile of sarcasm. He's not smiling out of, I know it all. It's a smile of friendship, of understanding. Simon, do you know the joy of serving a friend? It's interesting that we want to be served, right? We want people to understand that we need things. We want to be served. That's how we are in our society. We are children and we think our parents have to serve us. We grow up as adults, and many of us keep thinking that our parents need to continue serving us. This is how childish we still are. And this is not a judgment or criticism, it's just an evidence, it's a fact. So, do we know the joy of serving a friend? He's not saying the friend, that friend, this friend. He's saying a friend. Because usually it's like this. Oh, that friend is rich. And we're like, ooh, prepared. Because what if we need a loan? What if we need, information, etc., influence? What if that friend is from work? It's funny because we're at work, we make friends. If you leave that job, we'll see who is the real friend. Because usually it just ends there after you quitted that job or you were laid off, etc. So, serving a friend. So the question is, do I consider that person my friend? Because it's a title that we give. Jesus gave you and I the title of a friend. For him, you and I are his friends. Because that's how he feels about us. He is our friend. So he extends his friendship to us. Friendship is not like that little thing when you're little and you say, are you my BFF? Oh, yes, I am. And then they have a disagreement and say, you're no longer my BFF. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about, I make a decision if you're my friend or not. Whether you think you are my friend or not, I consider you my friend. That doesn't mean I'm going to impose, because Jesus doesn't impose, but he dedicates himself. He has always done it. Whether we feel like he's our friend or not, whether we even know him, he did decide to make a friend. So in the Spiritist literature, we're empowering ourselves to make a decision. Do I want to be a friend of this person? Do I want this person to be my friend? Am I going to give this person a title? Or is this person just a colleague, an acquaintance? The other day, Mentor Joseph, there was somebody who was going to come here to do a particular service at home. And I looked at the person, and it was the first time I met this person. And then I recalled what Mentor Joseph said once, Vanessa, don't ever think that any encounter is by chance. So I started looking at the person, and said, Jesus, please enlighten my mind so I can see in this person a new friend. Soon after, as if in a miracle, we're talking about a service at home to fix something. And in the conversation that was very informal, we gravitated to something that this person is experiencing in her family. And then we started talking, we were giving tips, and then we said, you see, when I open my heart to embrace this person without expecting that he or she is going to give something in return, I find the connection of true affection. And we could see the joy in the eyes of this person when we were sharing information that she was thirsty to hear, but didn't know where to find. How many things do we know that will enlighten people's minds, but we're so close to our mini circle of relationships that we don't share? We are emotionally greedy, spiritually greedy, because we select to whom we're going to dedicate ourselves. We select to whom we're going to serve. So the question is, do you serve your friends? Because many people, they say, oh, that person is my friend because every time I go in their house, they give me everything. They are so kind. So that's not a friend. You are a friend for them, but are you their friend? Because they're serving you. But have you ever served them? And if we have, did we feel the joy? So Peter didn't answer, but the master continued. The wedding at Cana was a symbol of our union on the earth. There, wine was the joy with which I wish to seal the existence of the kingdom of God within the heart. I am with my friends, and I love them all. The affections of the soul, Simon, have mysterious ties that lead us to God. Let us sanctify our affection, providing our friends with maximum joy. May our hearts be a bright room where they feel tranquil and blissful. Let us always have new joys that comfort them. Let us never contaminate the source of their sympathy with the shadow of grief. The most beautiful hours of life are the ones that we employ in loving them, our friends, and in reaching their innermost satisfactions. So here, friends, we're learning with Jesus a new way of being friends. It's not a title that somebody gives to us. It's a title that we give to others. We give them a title saying, you're my friend. Whether we speak to them about it or not, but we feel it. And he says, these affections of the soul have mysterious ties. He's talking about previous lives, the life continuum, and the progress of life, which is all divine. But now he gives us tips. He says, what do we do with our friendships? Because sometimes we have friends of saying like this, hi, how are you? How has your day been? Oh, it has been this way, that way, da-da-dee, da-da-da. Ah, okay. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye. Is it a friendship? Wow. Let us sanctify our affection. To sanctify, to make it holy, to make it divine. How? Providing them with maximum joy. Maximum joy is not drinking. Maximum joy is not loud laughter, LOL. No. Maximum joy, we're talking about immortal joy. sanctify our friendships. It's when we get together to do the good. And that's why it's the theme of the anniversary of the Spirit Society of Virginia. We get together, we can become friends, give each other the title of friends, but we need to devote ourselves to one another, to every person we encounter, whether in prayers, in words, in feelings, actions, and giving each other, as he says, may our hearts be a bright room where they feel tranquil and blissful, so where people can come and renew themselves, like Chico Xavier used to do, as Carol mentioned. Everyone who came to him found this tranquility, this bliss, this maximum joy. And we have never heard that Chico Xavier was like, yay, let's drink tonight. That's going to go downhill. We're going to find bad friendships, obsessions. Let us always have new joys that comfort them. So find ways. When you go to a store, we're so selfish that we buy things for us, but we forget to buy for our friends. It's their birthday, and we don't give a thing because we think, what is a birthday? Well, a birthday is a big deal for us who reincarnate. It's a super big deal. There's no chance you're born on this date and not another date. And it's a celebration every year, a celebration with God. Of course, we celebrate the life of people. I know a teacher in elementary school who is so Christ conscious that she celebrates every student's birthday, including their pet's birthday. She knows what Jesus is talking about. She is giving maximum joy to the children who are her students, and for her, she gave them the title of friends. She's not a spiritist, but who cares about the label? We know she's Christ conscious, and her attitude speaks louder than words. Let us always have new joys that comfort them. Let us never contaminate the source of their sympathy with a shadow of grief. What does that mean? It's when we gather together with friends just to say the bad problems, the gossips, and the things. It's like trash conversation. At the end of the day, we're like, ah. Of course, we can talk about things and pray together to elevate ourselves, but not to be in that constant complaint. Like, did you see the news? Did you see that person? Oh, I've heard about that other person. Gossiping and complaining and painting the world in gray. So we're happy we're not the only one who is miserable. We already painted the world miserable, and we found a friend to paint the world miserably. Not in true friendship. Now he's talking about the most beautiful hours of life, employing in loving them. See how little we know about the gospel. There are people who say, oh, it's so hard. Is this hard? Jesus is saying, come on, just let your joy go, flow, connect. And as Daisy reminded us, we're just going to reinforce. But Peter was like, okay, but how should we proceed when friends do not understand us, or when they repay us with ingratitude? Oh, it's so common. We're like this. People are like this. And Jesus placed a lucid gaze on him and responded, Peter, true and sincere love never expects rewards. So when we are like, come on, I gave them $1 million. I brought them to my home. I gave them shelter, everything, and now they are living a lavish life and they didn't call me, they didn't invite me over, blah, blah, blah. Wow. I don't want to have a friend like this because we're hostage of this friendship. They are giving to keep you hostage. So you're constantly bowing, saying, thank you, thank you. we're not going to make anybody our Lord, because the only Lord of life is God. And when we play this manipulation in our friendships, we are not only being a bad friend, we're being cruel, because we're playing games with people's minds, making them feel uncomfortable, imposing ourselves. Renunciation is its foundation, as the act of giving is the essence of its life. The ability to feel great affection is already a treasure in itself. The understanding of a friend should be the greatest reward for us. However, the light of understanding is postponed in the spirit of those we love. If that happens, we must remember that we have the sacred understanding of God that knows our purest intentions. Even if all of our friends in the world were converted on day into our adversaries or even into our tormentors, they could never deprive us of the infinite joy of having given them something. So only when we are able to have this sacred connection with God, we rise above and we don't expect. But let us pay attention to this sentence. The ability to feel great affection is already a treasure in itself. Emmanuel, in the book Thought and Life, chapter 1, says that everything begins in our sentiments, in our feelings, then thoughts, words, actions, character, attitude. If we are not daily expanding our capacity to love, to feel affection, we are miserable people who love just the 6 people in this world. Chico Xavier loved everybody whom he encountered, and Jesus was his model. Are we able to open ourselves, or are we going to spend our whole reincarnation with that mini circle? You see how greedy we are? We say, I'm not greedy. No, we are. Because love, the love of God flows through us like it was flowing for Chico Xavier. But what do we do with it? We withhold it. We confiscate it. We don't allow it to go through. Say, yeah, but it's so weird, Vanessa, to be in that person's house, or to be so close together, or then we need to reincarnate a million times to feel that there's nothing weird about opening the doors of our hearts to every new person we encounter and establish a deep bond of affection. Not out of the blue. It's a cultivation. It's a cultivation. That's why at the beginning of it all, the theme is cultivation. Today, we are being given the opportunity of revisiting our relationship with our divine friend Jesus, because it's thanks to him that the center in Virginia exists. I remember in Baltimore many years ago when the Spirit Side of Virginia was just a group of study, the seed. And in the mediumistic meeting, they showed us a video of the spiritual realm, because we can't go to that level because it's in higher spheres. And they showed like a control room, and there was a table illuminated with the world map on Earth and several lights. And then I asked Mr. Joseph, what are these lights? And he said, these are spiritist centers in the world. And I looked at some locations. I saw there were locations that didn't exist yet, and they had different colors. He said, yes, some already exist. Others are in the making, are in the planning, which, by the way, he said, we have to mention that the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, the Spiritist Society of Virginia, the Spiritist Society of DC, They were planned way before you all reincarnated. And the planning came up 150 years before everything. When Kardec was bringing the codification, the plan for the dissemination on earth was already being taken place. To prepare the whole team in two realms to work. So it's not by chance that we're here. It's not by chance that we continue to be here, that we're expanding our bonds of affection. It's not only to know Spiritism and go home and live our lives, but it's to bring ourselves together more deeply so we can together open our hearts to more friends that we're going to give titles to. And together with them, more friends. And thus, it's a solid dynamics amongst us. Now, through these efforts at the Spirit Society of Virginia, we have Kardec Radio, through which we expand so many friendships. It's so beautiful to see the connections, but are we going to open our hearts to it? Or are we going to do what majority of people do? We bring mundane friendships to our homes, right? Oh, a friend from work, a friend from the neighborhood. But then the Spiritist friends, we're like, we're not going to bring them home as if they are a different category. You see how conflicted we are. We still haven't understood what true friendship is. Because when it's true friendship, we do what Jesus did. He shared his mother with his friends. He shared his whole life, and he embraced the life of his friends. He didn't choose Caesar to be his friends because, I'm the governor of the planet. There's no internet here. At least a palace, please. At least servants. No, he didn't choose Caesar. He chose the fishermen, and he fished with them. And he went to their house, and he obeyed the orders of Peter's mother-in-law. Mamma mia, he was not even married, but Peter's mother-in-law was already ruling over his life. Did he care? No, he embraced her. He helped her as well. So we need to expand our emotions. You and I are invited today to expand. Justina here saying, well, I guess I have no time. I don't have friends. But you are here, Justina. That's the opportunity to be with us, and together we establish this friendship. We don't need to be in person physically. It's an immortal friendship, as Carol brought to us. And here's Teresa Castro saying, thank you, Teresa, a friend that we have made through these years. A wise man said, if we don't make time for our friends, we don't have any. That's why Justina said that, right? We have to make time. Nowadays, we're always in a rush. I agree. I'm guilty of that. Always like, oh my gosh. But we need to open ourselves, change our lives to say, this is what matters the most. We're not going to babysit any friend. Jesus didn't say, pamper your friends. He's talking about immortal joys. Immortal joys. And our dear friend John the Rose says, Jesus has been our eternal friend since God created us. So waste no time and always open your heart to form new friendships, which will extend into eternity. Food for thought for the feelings. Let us meditate. This is so deeply therapeutic. And before we go to the prayer, we would like to open if anybody has anything else to add before we say the prayer.
Vanessa, we remembered an account psychographed by Chico Xavier of a king who, after returning to the spiritual realm, could not find solace because he felt very isolated since he had not cultivated many friendships while on earth. And then it was proposed to this king that he should prepare himself to reincarnate. However, when he was taken together with the spirit mentors to see his former family circle, no one thought of him. When he went to see those who were close to him, no one thought of him either. It was then that the spirit mentors kindly took him to one of his most humble servants, and it was shown that the humble servant was praying for him daily with much love. And then he, the king, remembered that at one point in his journey, he gave one single piece of bread to that servant. It was an action that he didn't even think of much. It barely registered in his memory until that moment. And the spirit mentor said, "This is your new home. This is where you shall reincarnate because here is your bond, true bond of dedication and affection that you formed because of your act of charity, showing to us that what we do to others extend through immortality if we give to others out of love."
Thank you, Carol. So tonight we have a lot to think, but it's about friendship in the good. And we hope if you are in the neighborhood, you can come tomorrow for the celebration of the 14th anniversary of the Spirit Side of Virginia in person there for the gospel under the pine tree. We'll have special things, and the good spirit certainly will help us understand that we are together for even more. So we're inviting everyone to join us tomorrow. Now let us wrap up with a prayer as Carlos is here with us to lead us into this prayer.
So let's talk to our friend Jesus. Dear Lord of ours, we want to express our gratitude, major gratitude for this special time when we celebrate another anniversary, special anniversary of this SSVA brothers and friends. We are here so grateful, saying you allowed us to get together and to celebrate again. And how many more years God will allow us through you, dear Jesus, to give us this happiness, this immense happiness of being able to see our friends and to make more friends every day. We want to thank our friends, our group, our friends for sticking together for all these years and for the new ones that will come. We want to thank everybody for this happiness that we cannot even express. And may we all work on friendship. May we all work on the beauty of serve the ones that we call friends. and so be it.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, friends. And we hope to see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. or tonight at Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m. when we have more on the laws of love. For now, we wish everybody a wonderful evening or day, wherever you are, and a big hug. Let's think about friendship and really press on cultivating friendships. Thank you, friends.